Okay, so in this video, I'm going to go over the other file that's in the 3.0 is I included just a pretty basic project file that I use to try to streamline the crap that I do. It's not the best thing in the world, but I tried to at least streamline it to where I don't have to redo things every time. Pretty much what this is I have the what do you call it? The project file for World Machine that I use to bake all my erosion layers, my texture layers, my normals, mesh. If I'm using them, if I'm trying to make modular mountains that I have now in this version, I have the Unreal file that you can add, the raw 16 file. All that is produced in this application. Um, it does use a what are they called, dev macro that's called B core, and I've modified that to be able to get certain layer masks that I need for the cliff, the snow, and the sand, to be able to put that into a splat map to bring into Unreal. But I'll take you through this process. Um, right now, this is the, oops, undo. This is the map that I used to actually just get a few samples of some generated mountains from View that I actually brought into World Machine to bake down into actual mesh that we can populate terrains with, just to have some background mountains that are there. They're not the best thing in the world, and I think if I try to put a few more polys and effort into it, it can look a lot better than it does now. I think I've actually crashed View trying to hit undo. See if I can open this again. Sorry about the coughing. Hopefully that doesn't show up too loud on the thingamabobs. But in here, I keep clicking the wrong one. In here, we can, I don't know if you're familiar with this program, but you can come in here and pretty much create your own terrain as you desire. I'm trying to find the zero edges, but my highlights aren't working. There we go. Zero edges. So I can go in here. I'll use Fractal 2 since that's usually giving me good results. That's not good results, but we'll get there. Maybe it's the other way. Actually, I think I need to either increase or decrease light. There we go. So this is pretty much what I use for just like coming in and not having an idea of what I want exactly for a terrain. Or if I just want to come around here and play with numbers just to test something that I'm working on, or some idea, or some updated version of the actual terrain cover plugin, to just see if I can get something that looks decent and alright to mess with, and then bring that over into World Machine. So like if I wanted this, I mean, this looks pretty awful, but and it has really awful. I should have brought down some of the little grainy fine bits, but I think World Machine will be able to iron that out. So let's say if I want this, I can export this terrain. Wrong file. Library, terrains, targa. So if I just want to export this terrain as a targa file, sometimes you actually have to make sure that you're actually on the right settings for this to export correctly, because Vue has issues. I didn't export a big giant map like I usually do, because usually I go up to a 40, a 4K map, height map. But since this is just a test, I just export it as is. This is the file that I actually have in here, in the actual upload that you can unzip. And inside of here, I pretty much have the basic things that I may need. I have an input map. If I want to add it to the map that I'm bringing in into a randomly generated perlin, I can do that with these switches. If I need to blur it, make it into a terrace, and then kind of skew or scale the actual output before I go into the erosion, I have that set up there. The B Core 2 is a free tool out there that's available. I haven't seen any other version outside of this alpha, and that was a long time ago, so I guess the person who originally did this just dropped it. But I have this tweaked with certain settings that help me when I'm trying to make terrains. When you actually export this, well, unzip this, and you're trying to use it yourself, you might have to go into the macro and go into these. I can't drag. Go into these 5 ones right here and actually load the proper file. So inside of what I gave you, there's an overlays function. And you have to load these files back into it from the overlay function. So you have the height 2, you have the height, the cliff 1, the cliff 2, and then you have the main. And if you don't do this, then pretty much when you load it up, it's going to show black for your actual output, and you won't see anything at all. So over here in the actual output, I have the combiners for the rock, the cliff, the sand, and the snow. And outside of here, I actually have a preview with and without snow. We export our color map using an alpha based on the cutoff of the terrain. I use this mainly because when I was exporting mountains, I needed to make sure that I was cutting off the bottom of the mountain in both the mesh and the texture, so I can make sure that if I did anything with the actual terrain, that I could use either the alpha or the truncated polys for when I exported the actual map information. So this is my color. This is going to be my color map for the overall color. For my macro color, this will be it says 50K-ish, but since I'm using a mask to cut off the bottom of the actual mesh, the outputted mesh should be anywhere between 50K, maybe down to 28K, depending on how big your actual object is and how much is actually above water. But it should give you something between 50K to 80K polys for your actual mountains. And you can always play with this number to reduce it or increase it if you want. This is the raw map file for actually importing the terrain into Unreal. You get your normal map, and you get your rock, snow, and sand, and your flow, wear, and disposition maps from your erosion. So let's see. I'm just going to import that terrain that I got before. Height map. No terrain. I'm actually going to lower this 15 so it's not so steep. So 12. Alright, this should be a good something at least. I'm fairly certain it's not going to be the best in the world, but at least we can play with it. I'm not going to clamp it or anything like that. One thing I will do is probably blur it. A 2 blur. Let me make sure I enable blur. Alright, that should get rid of those extra things I had in terrain that looked god awful. And I'm just going to run this as is. And the way I have it set up with this actual structure, when I export, all my maps would go into a generic folder, which is the map, the underscore map out data. And what this gives me is the ability to just push everything I export to a different folder depending on the name type. So that's why everything that you see in this folder that's generating has bracket name, bracket underscore, and the definition of what the actual export part is. If you edit this batch file, you can come on here and you can actually tell it what folder you want to put everything in, and pretty much the naming convention that you want for the file. So like before, I was playing around with World Creator, and I called the terrain World Creator 1 pretty much. And then that way you run the batch file and it'll put everything in a nice little folder for you to be able to load your map into Unreal, to be able to bring your maps in however you want. Or, use the mesh. So let's see, this should be done now. So now we have our low erosion maps. Looks pretty crappy for the actual everything. But I'm just going to take this terrain and I'm going to send this over to, I'll just call it World Creator 2. It doesn't really matter. Then save that and run your batch file. And now your files are in World Creator 2. So now if we come back over to Unreal, we're going to make a new map. Call it whatever. Let's see. Do I want to save this? I guess so. It doesn't matter. Actually, I won't save that since that's actually in the plugin. I want it to stay as is for right now. So now we have an empty area. We can come and get our RPG sky, drop that in, put it to 0, 0, 0. Import our map, terrain, World Creator 2, and our map. And remember, this is, I have my world machine defaulted to the 2017 type. So if you change that, you're going to have to make sure you change all the other settings. So we brought in our terrain, but as usual, I don't like the original size. Let's go with 200 by 400. Still on the water, so I'm just going to bring that up. Probably need a little bit more elevation in that. So, oops, not 3,300. I'll keep it out of the water for right now. So now we can just go and create a new material instance. I'm doing it this way, even though I have it here, just so you can see what you'll have to do if you don't have this or if you're in a blank project. So I'll just call this ASD crap. Always use naming conventions. Always use naming conventions. I'm going to use the default base that I have in the actual plugin. And if I scroll all the way to the bottom, I can find my flow map information that I need. But first I'm going to apply it to the terrain so you can see that. So we can just get the base selection information, just like very base terrain information. You should have your grass and stuff populating already. Let's see if we can bring in some of that erosion information that we have. So if I import this, I can come up in the terrain. I think I'm running out of time. So let's see if I can make this faster. World Creator 2. We'll take this, that, and that, and the normal. So now we got our where coming in. Well, flow map where. I'm not good with terminologies. I would say I'm sorry, but whatever. And if you look at the actual overlay, this is what I was talking about, your macro color, your macro information. So that way it can bring a little bit of life out of your terrain than what's already there. And actually it did it properly. Usually with the grass type, when you bring in your where information, it doesn't necessarily cut off the grass where it's supposed to, because of the grass type not updating. So that's actually good to see that that is working without having to manually trigger the grass information to regrow back. And there you have it. Very basic crap in a little bit of time. A lot of tweaking if you want to do any other type of terrain environment types. I'm going to try to see if I can create some of my own and share those whenever I make it, especially for a desert, because I need one of those for my game. So if I can actually get it working, I'll share that as well. That should cover everything as far as I'm concerned. Everything else is just going in here and playing with whatever assets I have in here. The stuff that I got from Tree It. I don't have billboards for the trees, so it's not 100% optimal. Any of my assets that I have, I wouldn't say that they're 100% optimal. I tried my best to do what I could with what I have, but I'm going to be buying assets, so hopefully the marketplace will own my soul soon. But this should give a lot of people somewhere to start, to get in here, play around, throw some things in, experiment, and have fun, and hopefully learn something, because it's taking me a while to learn all this. So hopefully I can speed up the learning of someone else in this world of many things to learn and not enough time. Have a nice day.